Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this event, which is part of our NUS ISS Insight series. So, virtual welcome to everyone who's dialed in so far. My name is Scott C. I'll be your host for today. I teach product courses here at NUS ISS. And for this fireside chat, I have invited old friend of mine, Xin Wei. He's a founder and CEO of Pan.ai. And I will introduce him a bit more later. Okay? So for now, we will start off with a short presentation to level set everyone on AI agents. As you know, the hot topic that everybody seems to be talking about right now. Okay, so the idea here is we want to explore what happens when we ask these agents to do work that actually matters, right? Work involving real customers, money, sensitive information, right? Because when the stakes are high, that's when the bar shifts. Okay, so how did we get here? This did not suddenly happen overnight, right? You can see the progression here. For decades, software was largely rules-based, useful but narrow and brittle. The transformers and large language models gave us systems that could work much more fluently across domains. And then in the final step of this timeline, we can see that the models have begun to use tools, reason through steps, and act over longer horizons. Okay, so this last step is the one that we think changes the product conversation. This is the transition that we're now going through, right? So all of you must be familiar with chatbots, right? So chatbots answer, you ask a question, it responds usually with a wall of text. An agent, on the other hand, takes action, right? So you give it a goal, it tries to take a sequence of steps to complete the work, right? Use tools, remember context, and operating across different systems. So you can see that the shift is from answering to doing. The moment AI starts doing things on our behalf, that's when the stakes go higher, right? That's when we have to think more carefully about permissions, boundaries, and trust. I think that's also why the rhetoric has become so ambitious, right? So you can see there's a lot of hype, AI agents as a new digital workforce, business applications collapsing, and even organizations where people increasingly work alongside agents, right? You can see the Salesforce CEO that says, this will be the last generation of executives leading exclusively human workforces, right? So there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of hype, there's clearly something real here. But the language can make the technology sound more mature than it currently is. So what does an agent actually look like, right? So given all this hype and all this ambition, many of us probably still visualize what we see and what we imagine AI to be, like what we see in sci-fi, right? A single, powerful, autonomous intelligence. But when we look at the current reality, it's really far from that, right? You might be disappointed, but an agent looks more like this, right? It's often like a folder structure, a collection of markdown files, some instructions, some context, and a carefully configured environment that a large language model like Claude or ChatGPT points to. Okay, so it looks trivial, but it just means that this intelligence still depends heavily on the scaffolding that we build around it. So this is where I want to locate today's conversation, right? Because we still have the impression that, okay, these agents are the models, but we can see actually that at the bottom, we have these models, these compute, the underlying capability and the infrastructure. But organizations and teams are not really able to use that directly. This highlighted middle layer is where the agents actually lives, right? So this is where we decide what systems it can access, what data it uses, what tasks it performs, and how it behaves inside real workflows. Which then connects us to the top layer, right? The outcomes, the use cases leading to better workflows, leading to business impact. So when we say product layer, right, the product layer actually covers both. And the organizations that adopt this product layer still has to go back to the fundamental, right? Which is, are we solving the right problems? Are we solving real problems? Okay, so that leads us to the central idea behind this session, which is, trust. We think that it's still the property of the model, right? We still talk about hallucinations. But that's no longer really the key issue now, right? Trust now is more the property of the product itself. Powerful models can be placed inside unsafe products. Limited and not so powerful models can be made much more dependable if we carefully design them. And of course, this becomes more important as the stakes go higher, right? So for consumer applications, wrong answer will just be a shrug. Okay, try again. But since agents are now taking action, wrong actions can be missold policies, right? Breaches or citizens harm, right? So we want to stop asking what can it do and start asking what can we safely depend on, okay? But why is this so difficult? Okay, so let me ask you this. Would you trust a colleague if you have a teammate who just came into your company who looks like this? Okay, she's smarter than a PhD, so that's a big check, right? But it can also make mistakes that a primary school student wouldn't make. Okay, and unless we deliberately design memory around it, it has amnesia, right? So it keeps forgetting stuff. So if a human colleague had this profile, plus it eats so much tokens, okay, we would not simply give them access to every system and just hope for the best. Okay, one of the top thinkers in AI, Ethan Mollick, he describes this as jagged intelligence, right? So you can see this graph here, right? Capability does not rise smoothly from the simple task to the complex tasks, right? You can see the spikes, the collapses. AI is already superhuman in some tasks like coding, pattern recognition. But it can also be surprisingly fragile when tasks require recent facts or common sense or anything social related, right? Like reading the rooms. This radar chart on the right reinforces this point, right? So when we look at newer models, they have improved so much. They have expanded dramatically in some directions, knowledge, writing, math, and reasoning. But the capability is far from evenly distributed. And this is really the product challenge, right? Mapping where AI is reliable enough for the tasks that we are giving it. If we put this all together, right, one useful way to see is AI is the strongest when there is a right answer. So AI is now adding a lot of value in what we call verifiable domains, right? So coding, math, structured tasks, where there is a ground truth for us to check the work against. So the left box, right, gives us that safer territory. But when we look at this, the ambiguous tasks, right, that require judgment, nuance, messy context especially, there's no clear answer to check against. AI still falls short. Okay, so the more checkable the task, the more verifiable the task, the more you can trust your agents with it. So the hype says like things will turn autonomous, we won't need humans anymore. But if we look at this study that was done by Bain just recently this year, you can see that humans are still very much in the loop, right? So humans are still required in most of these tasks, and even more so in high stakes settings, right? Where you require guardrails, exceptions, approving consequential actions, and thinking about unintended consequences. Okay, so this chart shows another very important pattern in terms of organizational adoption of AI, right? You can see there's a lot of pilots, and there's definitely a lot of interest. If you look at the left bar chart, right? There's a lot of interest. Organizations are actively investigating what these AI systems can do. But when you look at the pilots, it's only a small number. And if you look at successful implementations, it drops even further, right? So from 80%, you go down to just 5% for embedded or task-specific AI systems. Okay, so you can see that the gap is still how do we get it into real workflows. Getting to 90%, that's now the easy part, right? So the first 90%, fast, cheap, impressive. You know, you have, it's now very easy to come up with a design or a prototype. Now, it's the last 10% that contains most of the real work. Okay? What happens, for example, when the customer asks the questions in unexpected ways, right? Or when the data is incomplete, when two systems disagree, right? Or when something goes wrong. So the last 10% is where the reliability, edge cases, reassurance, and recovery all sit. It may look small on this chart, but in practice, it is the hardest part. It is also most of where the real product work lives today. So this is what I call the last mile, right? And that's still where the challenge is, where the product mindset is very critical, right? Because if we want to ship something that an organization will depend on, it requires this series of unglamorous product decisions, right? So we still have to go back to the basics. Is it useful enough to adopt in the first place, right? Does it solve real problems, drive value? Second, is it robust enough to operate, right? Does it hold up against real users, messy data, and imperfect systems? And lastly, is it accountable enough for us to trust? Okay, when it's wrong, can somebody see it, explain it, and own it? So that leads me to the conversation that we have today, right? I call Shin-Wee as probably the best last miler that I know, right? He's the one who's gone through the trenches to build conversational AI. He's been doing that for almost 10 years. And he has answered a lot of these questions that I posed for himself and also for his clients, right? So long before the latest wave where AI agents have become the subject of every conversation, he's already been there as part of that journey. Okay, so I'm very excited to welcome him and to ask him questions and see and learn more from him, as I have in the past when I used to work with him as well. So he's an old friend, and I'm very happy to have him here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Scott.
All right, so let's go to the questions then. So, all right. When I was looking at your bio, right, when we were organizing this event, something came up to me, which is you had really every conventional path open to you. You took up engineering at MIT, you did MBA at Wharton, you did a lot of senior digital banking roles. And in 2016, you walked away from that to build a conversational AI company. So I'm curious, what did you see then that made you do that jump, that made you take that leap?
Well, first of all, I was 2016. I was young. I was naive, and I was probably stupid. But having said that, I don't think I saw anything that that allowed me to see the future. I didn't have a crystal ball in front of me. What I did do was that I saw a problem that a lot of companies, a lot of large organizations, especially, were facing at that time. And they had problems. They wanted to increase their revenue. They wanted to reduce their costs. There are a lot of tasks that are repetitive in nature that could be automated. And I thought at that time there was ready technology, and chatbot was starting to gain traction. So that was when we started to build chatbots for companies, banks, insurance companies, and of course, later on, snowball technologies improved, and we started to build hopefully better and better chatbots that could do more and more things for my clients. That's how we got started.
Great. So for a lot of people, right, based on what you just said, AI still means like type a prompt, then get a response back, then that's it, right? But for you, like you said, you were building chatbots all the way back from the pre-LLM era, right? When none of that generative stuff existed. So what did it take to ship something that worked back then? And, what did that teach you about, the people who are skipping straight to LLMs today? What could they be missing, right? Is that a shortcut that they took? Or what do you think about that?
It's actually a lot easier to build LM-powered chatbot these days. In most cases, the boards are becoming better, simpler to build, easier to build, and more powerful. But back in the days when we were using intent classifications models, IC-based models, we had a lot of constraint. The answers provided by the AI models weren't that smart. It's not dynamic, so we kind of have to pre-craft the answers. Because of that, because of so many constraints they had to work with, we have to be very systematic about creating engineering systems, right? So we have to think about how do we store memory? At which point should we get the users off from free text message exchange to a structured flow? And at which point do we want to allow the user to exit? So there was a lot of design thinking. There were a lot of UX expectations that we need to factor in. So interesting. I think it trains our guys, whether it's engineers, whether it's product managers, to be a lot more analytical, a lot more rigorous in terms of how to apply their critical thinking into product design. For new engineers or for people who are jumping straight into LLM-based AI solution today, you can essentially outsource a lot of these product design, a lot of this thinking to large language models. But that also means you are at the mercy of the models. Now, most of us, including engineers, we are consumers of the large language models. We do not control how the large language models work specifically. Most of that were done by the big frontier labs. So if you outsource everything to the large language models, you are looking at giving out a lot of control. So that's what we think is missing today in a lot of Gen AI solutions.
Do you see that there is a potential then to have a hybrid approach that still takes, the best of what you have learned from the pre-LLM era and the latest that the chatbots, not even the chatbots, sorry, the LLMs and the agentic systems can offer today, and combine them in a way that you can have the best of both worlds?
For most of our implementations, this is what we do, right? So you can't to outsource everything to LLM is lazy, right? And you're not going to produce a lot of groundbreaking solutions, AI products that way, because it's just simply too easy. And as the new models emerge, the behavior will change, so you lose a lot of controls. What you want is to pick a business problem, design a product, a solutions around it, and then see whether a large language models would be a good fit, and at which point. So many of the implementations that we do today centers around exercising our judgment on when do we want to use LLM and when to fall back on deterministic programmatic engineering.
What you said is music to my ears, as somebody who's teaching product, because you hit on the right keywords, which is we still have to solve the right problems, design the right solutions, and then we figure out what is the right technology that can match that solution that we have designed, right? And it's going to be, we cannot just outsource everything to a probabilistic LLM system. There should be some deterministic guardrails that we need to put together there as well, right? So one follow-up question I had, right, was I know you've sat across the most demanding buyers in the industry, right? The topic today is about high stakes. So I know that you have dealt with insurers, law firms, banks, and asset managers, right? Where we used to work together on that.
Yeah.
So when a client says, we want an AI solution, and now maybe we want an AI agent, what are they actually trying to get done, right? And how often does the agent they ask for match that job that they actually have?
Interestingly, we don't get a lot of clients who come straight up to us and ask for an AI agent. Many a times, and I think there's a reflections of the maturities of the market, a maturities on the part of the clients as well. Many a times when we get approached by new clients or the prospect, the first thing that they will talk to us about is the kind of business problems that they have. So, and if they don't articulate that, we'll ask them. Many a times we push them on two questions. Number one is what is the business objective, whether they are trying to increase revenue or reduce cost. And number two is what is their who is their target audience? Is it their existing customers? Is it prospective customers, or is it their stakeholders or even internal employees? So it's only when we work with them to identify what is it that they want to achieve. Then we come back to them and have a proper fruitful discussions on what kind of solutions we should build around to deliver, to accomplish to meet their business objectives. Sometimes it's an AI agent. In fact, many a times, especially recently, an AI agent can do many things. So many times, the solution is an AI agent, but it's by no means a default. And I think the clients have wisened up a lot, so they would want some sort of AI. But it could be an AI agent, it could be a chatbot, an AI chatbot, it could be an AI email bot, or anything in between. Sometimes it could just be a web app. So I think it's less about whether they want to build an AI agent. It's more about what kind of problems they want to solve. And oftentimes that problems end up with the solution to that problems end up being an AI agent.
When you say, I explained a little bit about AI agents in my short presentation, right? But I would like to hear from you from a practitioner perspective, from the industry. What are these AI agents actually? Can we demystify them for the layman? Because it's become such a buzzword. People have been using it differently. So from your perspective, given you have both a technical business and the practitioner background, right? Would you be able to explain in simple terms what AI agents are and how they're really adding value right now to organizations and your clients?
Well, for what I know, there are actually no fixed standard definitions for an AI agent. On one end, people will be saying, an AI agent is a chatbot that could call tools. So if it's a chatbot that can use a certain tools, and that certain tools could be like, checking your calendar. That could be considered as an AI agent. On the other hand, other people will argue that an AI agent will have to be fully autonomous. It needs to be able to make decisions on its own. It needs to be able to use tools at its own discretions. So for example, something like an AI brokers that will log into it, that will have access to your stockbroking account, that could trade on your behalf without taking instruction for you. That could be, to some people, is the ultimate versions of an AI agent. I don't think we need to be too hung up about what constitute an AI agent. Broadly, it is a tool that will allow businesses or individuals to get things done without, other than beyond retrieving just informations.
It sounds like agents, it's a spectrum. I think that's why the definition is a bit hard to pin down, right? Because I read this report that said you can consider AI agents on the one end of the spectrum. They're what we call episodic, which is like they just run once, complete a task, then they're done. Like call a tool, complete a task. And then there are ones that you describe, which is more like long-running agents, which are running in the background, over a long time horizon, and then they do task on your behalf as well, right? So I think that's kind of what I took away from what you said.
Yes, and if you talk to engineers, many of them will start using agents that with these features called agent loop. And you're right, they would they will help you develop the code, and then they would on their own or along with other agents start to examine the codes. So and they just go in loops until they are satisfied. So that's one version of agents. The more advanced versions, of course.
Yeah. So it's like a fancy for loop with a set of instructions that you keep running for over a long time horizon for now, right? But then it may evolve into something that could be much more.
Well, I would say that it's slightly more sophisticated than a for loop. Some of these agents are quite smart. They will make judgment, and oftentimes very good judgment on when to stop looping. So that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Nice. So one question I have, right? So since the whole field is now talking about agents, for you've lived the arc, which is going from AI that's answering questions, right, to the ones that are taking actions on real systems. So within that transition, what changed? And when do you let it act on its own, right, versus requiring a human to sign off? Since you said it's about longer time horizons now.
Well, so conversational AIs, some people call it information retriever. This is straightforward and low stake. You essentially ask the questions, and the board or the agents provides an answers. How it retrieves the information is dependent on many things, and you could get different degrees of accuracy. So some of these retriever-based chatbot or AI agents are actually quite advanced. On the other hand, when you talk about AI agents that take actions, I think what a lot of people appreciate about AI agents is that you don't have to take actions. Right? If it's a pure information-based retrieval agents, you cannot have to take the information. You cannot have to read the output, and then if the output is advisory, so it's asking you to take certain actions, then you actually have to go do it. Whereas if it is a agent, sometimes if you design it properly or you build it properly, the agents can just take the actions on your behalf. Yep. Now, of course, this is where we start to get into a risk management territory. Yep. So, at what point do you allow the agents to take over and make these decisions? What kind of tools you will expose to the agents for it to use, and at which point do you call it a stop and put a human in the loop? I think these are all engineering design questions that we need to consider.
A lot of the audience that we have today, right, are from public sector, from high stakes industries. Have you seen examples already of what you just described, working well, working reliably? And if so, what was the design that they probably nailed down correctly?
Maybe I can illustrate that with an example. One of the projects, one of the solutions that we keep coming back on when we deliver for our clients is an email bot. Now, an email bot is essentially it reads an incoming email, decide whether what is the content of that email, and then go retrieve informations and either from a fixed database or from a set of other proprietary systems. To give you a concrete example, let's say we are working. Let's say client is an insurance company, and somebody write an email to say, "Hey, my policy number is XYZ. what is my claim status. Now, to a human, this is easy, right? This human, we just need to, customer service officers, we just need to go to the claims portal, enter the policy numbers, look at what is the status, and then draft a reply. It is also not very difficult. The whole task, all these actions were also not very difficult. And these are actions that AI agents could do. So, what an AI agent would do is it would read the content, and then if enough tools on access are given, it can log into the claims portal, read the claim status for this particular policy, and then draft an email to be given that's ready to be sent to the customers. Now, in many of our implementations, we do not allow the agents to take actions to interact directly with the customers, partly because of compliance reasons. Somebody, and when I say somebody, I mean a human, we need to be accountable, and partly because this is all very new, and many companies want to make sure that the risks are fully managed. And so we usually let the last mile be done, especially when it comes to interacting with external customers. We usually let the last mile be done by a human. So in this case, the agents can do all the work, and you have a human to come in, check whether the agent is writing the email appropriately, and if it is, click the send button. If it's not, make a few editorial changes and click the send button. And those editorial changes will be captured and sent back to the AI for improvement and for learning purposes. So this is something that we've seen generally work, where at the very last, where you try to automate as much of the process as possible, and then you get a human to come in towards the end. That human becomes the judge to make the right call, whether to send an email or to make changes.
What I hear a lot is the topic of accountability keeps coming up again and again, right, when we deal with agents. And that, to me, is still a very tricky question, right? Because when you say accountability with agents, if the agent makes something wrong, who is the one who's actually accountable? Is it the one who's building, who was the builder, the underlying model, the operator, the person who was at the end, who approved? It becomes very tricky, right? And it reminds me of this, Geoffrey Hinton, the Nobel Prize winner, right? He predicted that by this year we will not have radiologists anymore, because the radiology is now done better by AI. But what we're seeing is a paradoxical outcome now, that actually we're seeing more and more radiologist openings everywhere, right? Which also points to that accountability question, right? So how do you view that dynamic about accountability?
Before I answer that question, why do you think there are more radiologists now?
Well, okay, my theory, my hypothesis for that is what AI does is it increases the number of scans, the number of people who are going through these scans, whether it's CT scan, X-ray, MRI, and all that. But you still need a radiologist at the end who has to sign off on whatever the AI did. So the AI capability increased the demand by probably making it more available. But that also means we have a bottleneck in terms of the people who are signing off on it. So that's my hypothesis. I want to hear your perspective too.
Well, I think I generally agree with that. Most likely is because the cost of productions or cost of doing a CT scan has gone down, because a radiologist right now can assess more CT scans within a fixed period of time. Let's say before, it would take him 2 hours to read one CT scan. I don't know. I'm just making this up. But maybe now he can read it in a CT scan in 5 minutes. So his throughput has increased. It brings down the cost, and therefore it makes CT scans more readily available and accessible to more people because it's now more affordable. So that is my guess, and I'm guessing that is what is happening with a lot of the AI implementations that we are seeing, where by using AI, you are able to bring down the cost of delivery or service delivery, and therefore you make such service or such products more easily available, and as a result, more people start to want more of it. After all, historically, our quality of life has always gone up.
Yeah. I believe there's an economic term for that, right? It's called Javon's paradox or something to that effect.
Well, that's why you are the lecturers.
But yeah, what about the question earlier about who will be the one accountable at the end?
Well, short answer is the boss is accountable. It's always the boss. So they, and I think that mirrors what is our whole social construct as well. The persons who are getting paid the most would take the most responsibilities and therefore the most obligations. So in the end, the boss will always have to take the hit. But really, what is happening? I know there are some debates about whether the blame should be laid to the frontier models developers, whether it should be directed at the vendors. If you pay the vendor enough, I think that some vendors would take the blame for you. But at the end of the day, it is a product that you as a client, as a brand, is delivering, and the person who is signing off, responsible for that launch, will have to be ultimately accountable. It is, however, no different from launching any product on any service for any sort of commercial entity.
I think this also brings me back to the last mile question, right? So AI now makes the 90%, the first 90%, really fast, sometimes almost too fast, right? But it's the last 10%, right? The reliability, edge cases, the reassurance, that's the one that eats up most of the work, right? So for you as a builder, why is that last mile so disproportionately hard, right? And what actually goes into closing that last mile?
So first of all, I'm not sure if I would agree it's 90%. It's probably closer to 70%.
Okay.
But yes, there is a lost mile issues. And oftentimes, I think a lot of people go to ChatGPT or go to Claude now and start building a prototype and think that what could be so difficult? How difficult could it be, right? But oftentimes, when you are ready to go into productions, you have to consider, especially for serious brands, you have to consider many, many factors like edge cases, like the worst case scenarios, and that calls into your judgment on engineering system design. So this is not something that you can get a high school kid or college kid to build on. That requires a lot of judgment, a lot of experience, and sometimes some taste on what need to be included and what ought not to be included, and which is, if I were to digress a little bit, which is why we are seeing right now mid-levels professionals who are comfortable in using AI, whether it's ChatGPTs or something more sophisticated, or maybe not more sophisticated, something more advanced or different. We are seeing that people like that are delivering a lot of values for the organizations that they work for. On the other hand, fresh grads obviously have a hard time finding jobs simply because they do not have that domain knowledge or that experience of going through the baptisms of fire. So those last mile require judgment, requires taste, requires experiences, requires domain knowledge to build ultimately a systems that will deliver the business business outcome, and that's not something that is easy to come by, and it takes time. It just simply takes time to build out.
I just wanted to turn to the audience. I see there are some questions on Zoom. Okay, so please do keep posting more questions and do upvote as well if there are any questions that you find interesting. Okay, so one of the questions that I thought related to what you just said, right, is the one that was asked by Sam just now, which is, I'm just starting out on my AI agent journey, right? So how should I accelerate my learning? And are there any watchouts, right? You probably already answered part of it, but anything you want to add?
I would say the best way is to be your own AI agent. There are a lot of tools out there that will allow you to build your own agents. So you can just go out there and try it out. Getting your hands dirty is probably the best way to learn. The good news is AI tools in general are quite easy to pick up. If you are a developer, you should not have any problems. If you are not a developer, you also should not have any problems, because the hardest part is thinking about what you want to build and then giving instructions, good instructions, to the large language models for it to help you craft an agent.
One more question that's Violet asked is, to what extent can AI be effectively deployed in people management? And at what point do the limitations of AI make human judgment indispensable?
Well, this is a difficult question. I'm curious to know, Scott, in your positions as a lecturer, and you obviously deal with a lot of students, you're training the future generations. How would you answer these questions?
Well, I would probably, I'm now the one answering. Okay, so I would look at it in one way, right? So we should probably break down the role versus the task, right? So a role is just a bundle of different tasks, right? So when you say people management, I would probably ask in what context, right? Are you the boss? Are you the HR? And within that role, what are the tasks that, for me, have a higher level of reliability already? So I break down that task, I give that to the AI agent. So one example could be a way for me to build profiles of the people in my team, let's say. So maybe from my one-on-ones with them, from the meetings I have with them, I'm able to have a better picture now with agents to say, okay, this is the person, and I need to remember the next time I talk to that person that this is their career objective and this is their goal. So that's probably how I would look at that. And but I think, given that, the limitation would still be, what do I do with that information? That will still be up to me. Right. So for you, you've managed so many people in your team. So how would you look at this question?
To be honest, we generally do not use AI when it comes to people management. We treat every employee like, and I know this is a little bit cliche, but we treat every employee as an asset of the companies. And as far as possible, we want our assets to appreciate, which means we want our employees, our team members, to grow professionally. And right now we are small enough that we can, I and my senior management can take a deep view into making sure that each one of the employees is well taken care of. So we don't necessarily, we have not thought about how to use AI when it for people management. We do use a lot of AI to carry out tasks.
Yep.
But what we oftentimes find is that the employees they take ownership would be able to self-manage. And we have a lot of smart people in Singapore. So the moment they start to take ownership, they would be able to self-manage, and they will be able to pick out how to use AI tools to create beautiful outcomes. So wouldn't necessarily use AI to run sort of to score employees or to monitor their screen time. I think we can all be better than that.
Like what Meta is doing now, right?
I'm not commenting on that.
Okay, Joshua is asking this question. Recently, there are more reports about intransparency and escalating cost of tokens. How do we build more independence in the way we design AI solutions to avoid being held hostage by some providers down the road? I think really great question, a very timely question as well.
I'd agree. Limit your tokens. Limit your token consumptions. I think the
How?
scarcity breeds creativity. So
Okay.
I think at the beginning, when you are trying to get people to adopt AIs, you want to make it unconstrained. You want to encourage them to explore what AI can do for them. And this is what we went through as well. Initially, we give unlimited tokens for my engineers, for my non-engineers to try out. And the moment, so they didn't have to worry about what to do or how to conserve their tokens. But once they get to a certain level of comfort, if they were to try, many of them would take shortcut and they would try to get the agents. They would just burn tokens and get agents to do everything for them. I think that this is when things start to get risky, in a sense that people will get lazy, not physically but intellectually. So you just kind of outsource all your thinking to the agents. I think that's not good for humanity in general. So what we do is we start to limit the number of tokens, or we ask them to exercise their judgment to choose what kind of models is appropriate. So for example, we know the frontier models are very expensive. The newest frontier models are always very expensive. But do you need the latest, newest frontier model to do everything? Sometimes for simple tasks, you're better off using older models or even open source models, which oftentimes cost 1/10 of what the frontier models cost. And they are faster at delivering equally good results. So by providing some sort of constraint on the for your teams, I think it forces them. Number one, I think it helps you cut down your costs, which is great. But number two, it also forces them to think creatively and exercise their own human judgment on what to do with scarce resources.
Yeah, I saw there was this report last month. There was this company who had this AI leaderboard, and their CEO asked their companies, their employees, who can use up the most tokens. And they ended up racking up a bill of like $300 million for Anthropic or something. But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, right? But it sounds like what you said also requires a new type of management skill, a new type of delegation, right? Meaning like you need to be able to know, who do I delegate this task to? Before it was like this employee or that employee. Now it's like, is it this open source model or that more expensive model? Right?
Maybe I'll add, I think everybody needs to go through a learning curve. So at the beginning, it's best that you do not put any constraint on the individuals so that they can go out there and explore. But as they become more and more comfortable in using different types of tools, understand the limitations of different AI models, they should be able to have the judgment to decide what task to be done by AI, what tasks to be done by non-AI, and what tasks to be done manually. And if they don't, then put some constraints so that they start to learn. I mean, humans are great adaptive animals. So I've never seen, at least in my team, I've never seen people not being able to cope.
All right. So one other question is, what tools can be used to detect AI content? Now that the AI platforms are getting more sophisticated and likely hard to detect in the near future, AI can be foreseen to replace real people who create content, so will humans become redundant? So I believe this question is more like the cat and mouse game, right? Between the people who produce with AI versus the people who detect with AI. It's definitely happening a lot here in the education setting, but what is your thought on that?
I'm curious to know what is the purpose of what is the motivations behind that questions, because it sounded like it is it sounded like AI generated content is necessarily bad, and human generated content is necessarily good. I don't think so. I think there are certainly a lot of AI slobs. There are a lot of human slobs as well.
Yeah.
So
why are we doing double standards? Right?
Yeah. So I think good content is good content, whether they are AI generated or not. And if you had the skills to create good AI generated content, kudos to you. And I think you should be rewarded for that. As on the other hand, if you are a human content creators and you've been working on creating human slobs, if there's such a term, and now AI is taking away your lunch, I think it's time for you to upskill and upgrade.
Wait, so that is the exact next question, right? Upskilling and upgrading. So Michelle is asking, there are a lot of AI tools and courses in the market, right? So which knowledge and tools should non-developers pick up first? So I think she's asking more from a non-technical background perspective. How do they get started? Right. Earlier, I know your advice was just build an agent, but would there be some more fundamental steps that they probably need to take if you're non-technical?
I don't think so. Well, first of all, you probably want to talk to a AI practitioner who could tell you, get yourself some basic understanding of how a large language models work. Then you understand the probabilistic natures of AI. But once you get past that, you have the basic level of understanding, just go out and use any generic, or maybe not generic, but general purpose AI tools like ChatGPT, like Claude, Gemini. These are all fantastic tools. You can do a lot of things with it. I will highly encourage everyone to get a paid version. I'm not a shareholder of Anthropic or OpenAI. I'm not privileged enough to do that. But the paid versions, oftentimes, which cost about $20 to $100, allows you to unlock many features that will make it easy for you to create new things. So if you're genuinely interested to learn more, pay that $20 is much better than going for any courses.
And just be shameless about asking any questions, right? That's what I normally do. It's
Yes.
like, just explain it to me like a 5-year-old or
Yeah, the beautiful thing about AI is that it's not going to judge you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is what we call an infinitely patient tutor.
Exactly.
Right. So I have a few more questions I have here. So one thing I wanted to ask you, I'm always really curious about this, right, is how do you decide an agentic AI product is ready to be put in front of a real customer with real stakes? Right? Given that you can never test any inputs, all the inputs, right? Because it is probabilistic in nature. What is your bar for ready? I think there's some talks about evals and new things that we have to add into the process. What's your take on that?
I don't disagree with that. I think we certainly need to have some sort of evals, some sort of observability framework. And you need to have enough audit trail to monitor the conversations, to monitor the movements of data. But to your questions, I think this is more of a product management questions than anything. Now, you know, nuclear can be used for power to generate energy. It can also be used as an atomic bomb. So how it gets used almost 100% depends on the product designer or the product managers. Same thing when it comes to AI. I think that product designers / product managers will need to decide at which point is the agentic solutions, these AI agentic solutions, ready. What is the risk level that the product manager is willing to tolerate? It will always be a trade-off. And I think that is when human judgment, human taste comes into the pictures. So I think that is a simple answer to your very...
Let's say you are coming more from a public sector context where every mistake has really high stakes. Would that change your answer in terms of what is the bar for getting ready? Because I believe there's a tendency to be a bit more risk averse, right? Which is sensible because you are dealing with sensitive information, you're dealing with somebody's livelihood, high stakes.
I think it's very situational. It depends on what we are talking about. Even when it comes, forget about agentic AI, just look at a simple chatbot. The argument would be that if you stay with non-Gen AI, non-LLM chatbot, all the answers are pre-prepared, all the answers are pre-crafted, so you could never go wrong. It will create a lousy experience, but you are 100% safe. That's one way to look at it. The second way is you would use LLM, Gen AI, and then you are able to create a good user experience because the answers are, you are able to answer more questions and the answers are more on point. But you might get a few questions wrong. Now, you as a product designer, you have to decide at which point does the balance tilt. Balancing your responsibilities as a public servant to serve more people with good enough output versus occasionally putting out wrong answers. I think that is a judgment call against, that requires humans. I think your vendors or your developers who are experienced enough could give you some insights, some advice on where the trade-off is, and perhaps to work around the trade-off. Like sometimes, when the AI detects certain things that is out of bound, it could, escalate to a human. So they are tricks like that. But ultimately, I think the decisions will still go down to the ultimate product owner.
Okay, we have time for maybe one last question. Maybe I'll just combine these two, right? So Eng Chai is asking, how do you explain and defend an agent's decision to regulators, customers, etc.? Then we have another question, which is just a broader question about how AI can help them and how they can help them with day-to-day work. Okay, so...
how do you explain and defend an agent's decisions to regulators and customers? Well, first of all, you can control your agents, right? You can control your agents by limiting the tools that they have access to, and by putting guardrails around it. Even the system prompt, even the instructions for the system prompt, these are the control levers that you could have. So in a way, when you are developing before you even developed an AI agent, you could be able to, on a piece of paper, theoretically, be able to explain how these agents work, when it would be able to take certain actions, and when would it break. All of these can be explained upfront. You can control how much capabilities, how much power an agents have. You may not be 100% control everything, every single word that it says. But when it comes to taking actions, you have more control than you think. So that is something that can be explained to regulators, to customers, and then
maybe
sorry,
we
what's
can
the second?
bundle this day-to-day work with any final reflections you want to share with the audience, since we're now up for time.
Final reflections, I would probably say is, just go out and experiment. The one thing we can be sure of is that the cost of token is likely going to be the lowest right now, i.e. it's going to get more expensive in the future, because right now we got subsidies from
VCs.
Yes. So now is the best time for individuals or companies to launch AI products. Even if you fail, and you shouldn't fail if you get a good vendors or you get a good developers who is experienced. But even if you fail, the cost for you to learn is lower today than it is tomorrow. So
Which is the opposite of normal technologies, right?
Exactly.
That gets cheaper.
yes, yes. So
Okay.
I would encourage everyone to just go out and start experimenting with AI as individuals. Use Claude, use ChatGPT in your daily life. If you are running a business, experiment with launching new AI solutions.
Great. Okay. So thank you so much, Shin, for sharing all your insights this afternoon.